July 14, 1943, Camp Livingston, Louisiana. Sergeant Takeshi Yamamoto stared at the dark brown liquid fizzing in the glass bottle, convinced the Americans were administering some form of medicinal treatment. The camp medic had handed it to him along with 2 white tablets, aspirin for the headache he'd complained about after 3 days in the Louisiana heat. Yamamoto had been captured on Attu Island in the Aleutians just 6 weeks earlier, one of only 28 Japanese soldiers taken alive from a garrison of 2,500. Surrender meant eternal shame, but survival had proven stronger than Bushido when American flamethrowers had sealed his cave. He drank slowly, expecting bitterness, like the herbal medicines of home. Instead, sweetness exploded across his tongue, followed by a burning sensation from carbonation he'd never experienced. The sugar hit his system like electricity. He finished the bottle and waited for the medicine to take effect. An hour later, when the American guard asked if he wanted another Coke, Yamamoto realized with dawning confusion that this wasn't medicine at all. It was a beverage. A casual drink that American soldiers consumed for pleasure, not treatment. The guard had already finished 3 bottles that afternoon, tossing the empties into a bin without thought. That evening, Yamamoto wrote in the diary he was permitted to keep. The Americans possess a drink called Coca-Cola that tastes of impossible sweetness. They consume it freely, as we might drink water. I watched the guards today. They drank perhaps 10 bottles between them, discarding each one after a single use. The sugar alone in what they waste would feed a Japanese family for a week. If this abundance is real and not staged for propaganda purposes, then everything we were told about American weakness was a lie. What Yamamoto couldn't know was that his confusion was being replicated across 17 prison camps, holding the first wave of Japanese POWs to reach the American mainland. These men, raised on stories of American racial degeneracy and material poverty, were discovering that the enemy they'd been sent to defeat possessed wealth so profound that medicine and pleasure had become indistinguishable. Within months, Coca-Cola would become the symbol of everything that separated Japanese military austerity from American industrial abundance. The Japanese military's preparation of soldiers regarding America had been thorough, systematic, and catastrophically wrong. Lieutenant Masao Hirayama, captured on Saipan in July 1944, would later testify about the indoctrination he'd received at officer training school. We were taught that America was a nation of mongrels, weakened by mixing of inferior races. The instructors showed us photographs of American slums, breadlines from the Depression, and told us Americans had no stomach for sacrifice. They said American factories, dependent on profit motive rather than patriotic duty, would never achieve coordination necessary for sustained war production. The capture of Japanese soldiers presented unique challenges. Bushido Code demanded death before dishonor. Of approximately 140,000 Japanese soldiers killed during the Pacific War, only about 5,000 were taken prisoner. These men represented failures in their own eyes, many having attempted suicide before capture. They expected execution or torture, not Coca-Cola and baseball games in Texas. The first significant groups arrived in late 1942 and early 1943, most captured during Guadalcanal or in the Aleutians. Corporal Yoshio Nakamura, captured on Guadalcanal in January 1943, recorded that his first American meal consisted of beef stew, white bread with butter, coffee with sugar and milk, apple pie, and milk to drink. "I thought I was being fattened for execution," he wrote. "In the Imperial Army, we received rice, dried fish, and occasional vegetables. Here was food I had never tasted, in quantities I had never seen." The camps themselves contradicted everything prisoners expected. Camp Livingston, Fort Sam Houston in Texas, Camp Shelby in Mississippi housed Japanese POWs in conditions exceeding what most had known as civilians. Electric lights, running water, flush toilets, steam heat in winter all seemed impossibly extravagant. But the camp exchanges delivered the psychological earthquake. Declassified Army quartermaster records show Japanese POW camps stocked their exchanges with the same goods available to American servicemen: Coca-Cola, candy bars, cigarettes, chewing gum, playing cards. Prisoners earned 80 cents daily for labor. 80 cents could purchase 16 Coca-Colas or candy bars, an amount of sugar that would have been unthinkable luxury in wartime Japan. The Coca-Cola confusion persisted for months. Private Shigeru Matsumoto, captured in the Marshall Islands, told interrogators he'd initially refused to drink Coca-Cola because he believed it was made from blood, a rumor based on the liquid's dark color. When guards demonstrated they drank it themselves, Matsumoto tried it cautiously. The taste was shocking, so sweet it hurt my teeth. I had forgotten what sugar tasted like. In the Pacific, we had no sugar for 18 months. Here, the Americans had so much, they put it in water and drank it for pleasure. The cultural gap was profound. Japan in 1943 had virtually no soft drink industry. The concept of mass-produced, nationally distributed beverages in standard bottles was foreign to Japanese experience. When prisoners learned that Coca-Cola was produced in hundreds of bottling plants across America, available in every small town, consumed by Americans of all classes, the implications began sinking in. This single beverage represented industrial coordination, resource abundance, and consumer democracy that Japan had never achieved. Yamamoto's diary traced his evolution. July 23rd. The guards threw away 6 Coca-Cola bottles today, each still containing liquid. Such waste is incomprehensible. August 4th. I have learned Coca-Cola is made by a private company, not the government. How can private industry coordinate national distribution? Yet every camp receives shipments weekly. August 19th. An American magazine showed a full-page advertisement for Coca-Cola. They advertise beverages like we advertise war bonds. The implications terrify me. Beyond Coca-Cola, the exchanges stocked abundance that shattered expectations. Hershey bars, Mars bars, Baby Ruth, dozens of chocolate products. Japan's chocolate production had been commandeered entirely for military rations. Here, prisoners discovered America produced chocolate so abundantly that even prisoners could purchase it for 5 cents. Wrigley's chewing gum, Camel cigarettes, Lifesavers candy, all the products Japanese propaganda had declared signs of decadent weakness, were available in unlimited quantities. The psychological impact accelerated when prisoners received American newspapers and magazines. Stars and Stripes, Life magazine showed an America utterly unlike what Japanese intelligence described. Advertisements revealed a consumer economy operating at full capacity despite war. Photographs showed American families with automobiles, homes with electricity, children drinking Coca-Cola at soda fountains. Lieutenant Hirayama wrote, "Every page contradicted what we had been taught. These papers showed a nation growing stronger. The food provided daily refutation of propaganda. Menus from Camp Livingston in August 1943 showed breakfast of scrambled eggs, bacon, toast with butter and jam, coffee with cream and sugar, and orange juice. Lunch included fried chicken, mashed potatoes, gravy, vegetables, pie, and milk. This exceeded what Japanese officers ate in Tokyo, let alone frontline troops in the Pacific." Corporal Nakamura calculated that food served to prisoners in one day contained more protein than Japanese civilians received weekly under rationing. We were eating beef 3 times weekly. In Japan, beef was reserved for special occasions even before the war. Here, enemies ate it routinely. The Americans gave us butter, which I had tasted perhaps twice in my life. The camp theaters delivered another shock. Japanese prisoners attended film screenings, watching Hollywood productions. The films showed ordinary Americans living in houses that would be wealthy in Japan, driving automobiles Japanese officers couldn't afford. Private Matsumoto wrote about watching a musical in October 1943. The film was foolish about people singing and dancing, but I couldn't stop noticing the background. Every character had abundant food, nice clothing, comfortable homes. If Americans could waste such resources on frivolous entertainment during wartime, what did that mean about their actual industrial capacity? The Japanese concept of gammon, endurance through hardship, had been central to military indoctrination. The POW camps demolished this narrative. Americans treated hardship as a problem to be solved through technology and resources, not endured through spiritual strength. When summer heat made barracks uncomfortable, Americans installed fans. When winter brought cold, they pumped steam heat. Every challenge was met with material solutions rather than stoic acceptance. This philosophical difference crystallized around Coca-Cola. To Japanese military thinking, the beverage represented everything wrong with American character. It was unnecessary, frivolous, wasteful. Yet Americans considered it essential for morale, produced it by billions, shipped it globally, and provided it to prisoners. The disconnect revealed fundamentally different approaches to warfare. Japan fought through deprivation and sacrifice. America fought through abundance and comfort. By early 1944, accumulated evidence of American industrial superiority created what Army intelligence termed cognitive break among prisoners. Men who had believed fervently in Japanese victory began expressing doubts centered on mathematics. Japan could never match American production. Yamamoto's diary from February 1944 captured the transformation. Today, I calculated that sugar in Coca-Cola consumed at this single camp exceeds the sugar ration for my entire village. The Americans waste more than we possess. I learned Coca-Cola Company operates 500 bottling plants producing 5 billion bottles yearly. If this is true, and I have seen it with my eyes, then how can we win? The labor programs beginning in late 1944 provided intimate exposure to American society. Working alongside civilians, prisoners discovered ordinary Americans lived better than Japanese officials. Farm workers owned automobiles. Factory workers ate meat regularly. Teenagers drank Coca-Cola after school. Private Matsumoto worked in a Texas cotton gin during fall 1944. The farmer who employed us was not rich by American standards, yet he had electricity, running water, a truck and a car. His children attended school and drank Coca-Cola with lunch. When I told him his farm was larger than our village headman's estate in Japan, he seemed surprised. The harvest season brought prisoners into contact with American agricultural abundance. Working in Nebraska wheat fields and California orchards, they witnessed food production that made Japanese agriculture seem medieval. Nakamura picked peaches in California during September 1944. We harvested more fruit in one day than my village produced annually. Perfect peaches were rejected for minor blemishes and fed to pigs. I wept watching such waste. The concept of too much food was incomprehensible. Christmas 1944 delivered profound impact. American organizations sent packages to enemy prisoners. Local communities provided concerts. The Christmas feast itself defied imagination. Turkey, ham, mashed potatoes, vegetables, cranberry sauce, pie, ice cream, and coffee with unlimited sugar. Yamamoto wrote, "They feast us better than the emperor's birthday celebration in Tokyo. This makes no sense strategically. Why waste resources on prisoners?" Then I understood. They don't consider it waste. They have so much that feeding enemies abundantly costs them nothing. They've already won through production. The education programs established in 1945 focused on demonstrating American society rather than teaching political philosophy. Prisoners accessed newspapers, magazines, books. They studied English, mathematics, practical skills. By spring 1945, thousands were voluntarily studying American history and economics. Discussion groups formed to debate what Japan had done wrong and what reforms would be necessary after defeat. Lieutenant Hirayama's transformation was documented by army psychologists. In July 1943, immediately after capture, he maintained Japanese spirit would overcome American materialism. By March 1945, his essays revealed complete reversal. Japan lost this war before it started. We challenged a nation that gives Coca-Cola to prisoners, not because they are weak, but because to them this gesture costs nothing. They have abundance beyond our vocabulary. When we return to Japan, we must learn from this. They create wealth, not take it. The atomic bombs in August 1945 and Japan's surrender created complex emotions among POWs, predicting defeat for months. But educated prisoners expressed understanding of inevitability. America had demonstrated unlimited industrial capacity. Nuclear weapons proved this capacity extended to physics itself. Yamamoto's final diary entry from August 17th synthesized years of observation. Japan challenged a nation that produces 5 billion Coca-Colas yearly while fighting a two-ocean war. We believed their luxury made them weak. We were wrong. Their luxury demonstrated strength so profound they could share it with enemies. I learned atomic bombs were built in secret facilities across America while they simultaneously produced everything else. They weren't choosing between bombs and Coca-Cola. They made both. Japan lost to a civilization operating on principles we never understood. The repatriation occurred between late 1945 and 1946, with approximately 4,200 men returning to devastated homeland. What they carried home was knowledge that challenged every assumption about Japan's place in the world. The stories these men told about American abundance gradually spread, contributing to Japan's psychological preparation for occupation and reconstruction. The POW experience influenced post-war Japanese leadership more than commonly recognized. Their understanding of American industrial methods, organizational efficiency, and consumer culture shaped business practices that would drive Japan's economic miracle. Corporal Nakamura became a local business leader and wrote extensively about his experience. His 1973 memoir described how American treatment taught him prosperity came from creation, not conquest. The Coca-Cola bottle taught me standardization, every bottle identical, every taste the same, produced in hundreds of locations but coordinated perfectly. This was the secret of American power. The statistical comparison reveals the disparity POWs witnessed. In 1943, Coca-Cola produced approximately 5 billion bottles. Japan's entire soft drink industry produced perhaps 50 million bottles, 1% of American production of a single brand. For chocolate, American companies produced 380 million pounds for military use alone, while Japan's civilian chocolate production had ceased. These ratios explained why prisoners found American abundance shocking. The Coca-Cola Company's wartime strategy demonstrated what confused prisoners. Company President Robert Woodruff pledged every serviceman would get Coca-Cola for 5 cents, wherever stationed. This required building 64 bottling plants overseas, training technical observers, coordinating global logistics. The commitment seemed frivolous, yet it demonstrated organizational capacity that impressed allies and intimidated enemies. Japanese military planners had dismissed American consumer culture as weakness. The POWs discovered it was strength. Industries producing Coca-Cola represented manufacturing coordination, quality control, distribution networks that could be instantly converted to military production. American consumer abundance was military logistics practice. Lieutenant Hirayama stated it explicitly in a 1946 interview. We saw Coca-Cola as evidence of American frivolity. We should have seen it as evidence of industrial mastery, a nation that could coordinate production and distribution of luxury beverages during total war could coordinate anything. Japan never achieved such civilian logistics, even in peacetime. We lost to their system, not just their weapons. The symbolism of Coca-Cola in this transformation cannot be overstated. When Coca-Cola returned to Japan in 1957, it was received as a symbol of prosperity and modernity. Former POWs who first tasted it in Texas camps watched their children drink it in Tokyo and saw completion of a circle. The confusion of 1943 had evolved into understanding that American pleasure had always been about productive capacity. Today, Japan is one of Coca-Cola's most important markets. The Japanese beverage industry produces thousands of products with efficiency that would astound those Texas camp guards. The student has surpassed the teacher in some respects, but the lesson was learned in unlikely classrooms, prison camps where enemies became students and Coca-Cola became curriculum. In 1995, Sergeant Takeshi Yamamoto, then 78, returned to Camp Livingston with his grandson. The camp had been decommissioned, but monuments marked its location. Yamamoto stood where barracks had been and told his grandson about drinking his first Coca-Cola, thinking it was medicine. I was wrong about many things, but I was most wrong about what American abundance meant. I thought it was waste. It was power. I thought it made them weak. It made them unstoppable. That first Coca-Cola taught me more about why Japan lost than any battle report. We were fighting the past. They were building the future, and they were kind enough to let us taste it, even when we were their enemies. The story of Japanese POWs discovering Coca-Cola in Texas represents more than cultural misunderstanding. It captures the moment when Japanese military culture confronted American industrial democracy and realized the war was already lost. The men who confused medicine with pleasure in 1943 carried home understanding that shaped Japan's peaceful rise. They learned strength comes from creation, prosperity enables generosity, and sometimes the most powerful weapon brings sweetness rather than death. They learned these lessons from a 5-cent bottle of Coca-Cola in a Texas prison camp, and they never forgot.